For wheat samples, whole plant samples are the best. If you just submit leaves or just a single plant, that really doesn't give us a lot of information. So for wheat, the best sample that you can provide for us is a nice clump. And you want to make sure it's of the affected wheat. And just for your memory, or just to remember, dead is too late, okay? You oftentimes will get, a dead sample, and really it's too far gone, and there's a lot of secondary organisms that can colonize that, and it's difficult to get down to the primary problem. So you want to pick the affected wheat that you're having a problem with, maybe in a transition zone, or you could take several samples. A lot of times our agents will submit samples and they'll label those the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that really is helpful for us to get samples like that.
You don't mind multiple samples like that?
We do not.
Okay.
That helps paint a bigger picture of what's going on. You want to dig these with a shovel or a trowel. And I say that in wheat primarily, maybe not as critical, but for just in general, anytime you're submitting a sample for diagnosis and you're submitting a whole plant, get into the custom of digging those with a trowel or a shovel and not pulling them out. Because when you do that, you disrupt the root zone, and it's hard to get any good information from the roots that are compromised like that. We like that you put them in a plastic bag, and we just use a grocery bag like a Walmart, Kroger, or whatever, and secure that root ball off. And you could do that in the field pretty easily. Just tie it off. And what that does, it retains the moisture before it comes to me, and it also keeps that soil, if it's shipped, from getting all over the foliage, which can contaminate the sample too. Okay. If you're making comparisons, like I said, if you have different areas of the field, make sure and include those samples, another additional sample of what you're comparing it to. For instance, if you think your wheat's stunted, if I just receive this clump and you write on there stunted, it's hard for me to get a good idea of what degree of stunting. And so if you would provide another sample in an area that's in the compared area, that really gives us an idea of the degree, the severity of the problem that you're talking about. And then you would also just secure that root ball just like that other sample. And then if it's very helpful too, if you'll write on those bags the good sample and the bad sample. I know it may seem obvious, but sometimes after these come in, they maybe sit a day or two in the extension office, and by the time I get them, what you would assume would be the stunted, it can change a lot during shipping. So make sure to label those accordingly. Pictures are welcomed and they're very helpful. Do you guys, when you're out, do you take a lot of pictures with your phone sometimes when you're trying to figure out problems in the field? And oftentimes those pictures can help provide us with a couple of things. Can you guys think of anything that would help if you included a picture in for wheat, trying to address a problem, some things that we're looking at? Patterns. Are we seeing differences in spray patterns in those affected areas? So any information additional to the sample that you can provide is beneficial. Okay, so once you have all your samples collected, you've taken your pictures, these pictures, you can email those to me directly, or you can get those to your county extension agent. We want you to drop off your samples at our extension agent's office. This is our preferred way of sample submission. We know if you're in the area and you're close by, that's fine. You can drop it off right in the diagnostic lab. That's perfectly fine. But understand that we get pretty busy and we may not be able to visit with you directly at the time that you drop it off. And just have that understanding. But be prepared to fill out those sample submission forms because our diagnosis is only as good as the information that you provide. There are advantages to dropping off your sample at your extension office. One is our agents are very well trained, and they could be able to assist you right then, and they could possibly go to the site. Plus, the agents have direct access to our specialists. And it can save you hours from driving to the diagnostic lab. I don't know how many times I've gotten a phone call and asked, what time do you close today? I'm 2 hours away, and really there's no need for you to drive 2 to 3 hours to come. If you got a local extension office right there, you can drop that sample and they'd be happy to send that to us. Plus, the agents know when our diagnostic labs are closed. I would hate for somebody just to get in a truck and drive 2 hours and the office be completely closed. You may think that you're getting faster service, but in reality, on those very busy days, walk-ins are our lowest priority. Okay. I put several sample submission forms in your packet, and I tried to cover some early samples. I think I started in April, and then one in June, and maybe one at harvest, May, and one at harvest, just to give you an idea of the kind of information that we're looking for. So kind of a broad thing. Well, we stopped mailing sample reports directly to our clients a couple of years ago, and now we use email addresses primarily for our reports. So it's important that when you fill out your forms to make sure you have your email addresses clearly written on the form so that we don't have any glitches in trying to get that information back to you. And then to your best ability, please fill out those questions or that we address on the form. We need you to fill out the parts that are diseased just to the best of your ability. If the leaves are affected, here we check the leaves off. And then the symptoms to your best of your ability, put on there what the problem is. And on this example here, I really like, you might check this out. There's a little bit of tip burn here and a little bit of purpling. On the form, I think here, they said a little yellowing, and they wrote in purpling, which is very helpful to us because we want to make sure that we are working on the problem that you're seeing. And then the location of the plant, we know it's in the field and where it came from, the pattern of disease to try to pinpoint that as best you can, the planting date, the percentage of the planting affected, that gives us an idea of how severe the problem is. And it's helpful too if you provide the acreage. And then the soil type, just good background information, the previous crop, whether it's conventional or no-till. And then the inputs. The inputs are important, especially when we're trying to determine those abiotic problems. If you could tell us all the inputs that were applied prior to the crop, well, if there was something that needed to, like for wheat, what was done in the fall and what was done in the spring. And then any notes that you can give us is helpful too. This field has no history of problems with wheat. That's helpful. Anything that you can provide for us is helpful. Also, if you have a particular question that you want answered, go ahead and write that on the form. That way we're not trying to second guess a problem. One producer here put suspect chemical damage from fall applications. That really helps us pinpoint. We want to make sure that we're addressing your problem, your question. Okay, let's see. If you suspect chemical injury, make sure to report all those chemicals and the rates and the dates that they are applied, because we're trying to establish a timeline. We're not able to test for chemicals at our labs, but our specialists, our weed specialists, will look at the sample and make a determination based on the symptoms expressed and the information that you provide. Okay, are there any folks here that are out of state? couple one. We do accept out-of-state samples, but we're limited at the amount of work that we can do on those. We do have some IPM money that we can work on some for our Kentucky rowers, but we are limited for out-of-state samples. And for those samples, they need to be double bagged and treated a little bit different than our in-state samples because of our APHIS permitting. And just tell the agent, if you would take something to the Kentucky Extension office, just tell him that it's an out-of-state sample and then where it's from, and they'll handle it from there. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Edwin.
Soil samples are helpful too, soil test results.
Yeah, soil test results are helpful. That's right. Anybody else?
Is the service free?
The service is free. No charge. No charge. Okay.
What's the general turnaround time during a busy time?
Well, general turnaround time for a commercial sample, I try to get those out as quick as possible, and I think it's around 3 to 4 days here. We don't sit on commercial samples, so. But there can be some, delay if we're trying to get information and we're trying to do research. Yeah, so it's very helpful if you can get us as much information as possible. Because if not, and we have other questions, we have to go through the agents and it just slows things down.
Phone tag.
Yeah, phone tag. It's tough, so. Okay. Well, I think everybody got a hand lens in their packets when they came this morning. How many have had experience using hand lenses? A few of you? Do you like using them? Are they helpful? Yeah. Okay. I thought I'd take a few minutes and try to just give you a couple of pointers on how to use a hand lens. One thing is, I would suggest if you guys could put them on a string or a chain or something, just so that it's easy to do this way. You can drop it and be hands-free. That's the one benefit that I've found by having it on a kind of a string or rope. And this was just something that I had laying in a drawer from a meeting for a name tag. So you all may have these sitting around you're not using, but it comes in handy for this. So Carrie had fixed she pulled some wheat out and was looking at these heads and thought it might be useful if we could practice on these. So when you open it up, you kind of just grab it in your right or left hand, whatever handed you are. And it's not helpful just to see how far away it is from my eye. That might be your best thing. You might think that naturally that I'm just going to look into this far away, this far distance, but that's not going to help you at all. And kind of get the concept if you're trying to make your eye a microscope. So you're really going to have to get this a short distance from your eye to work with it, okay? And the other thing is you'll want to close one eye and kind of like you're looking down a pipe. That might help you a little bit. And just kind of focus in, get it close up there. You might just practice that for, it's going to kind of odd just to get used to having it in your hand and using it. Just kind of put it up there. And then I'm going to pick up and pass out this wheat sample. And then the idea is the working distance has to be really close to this in order for you to really see it there. I've also brought some spare change for you guys to practice on. I think it's helpful if you're working with something that you've already know what it looks like. Here's a penny. You guys try to... You got any spare change you guys want to work on? Just kind of practice on that a little bit. Any questions about how to use a hand lens?